Hey, read with Spot the Impostor, the series, episode 2. Last week we discussed cognitive biases and healthy skepticism in relation to C in crew. This week we'll talk about the R in the crewmate mandates. Recognize. Recognizing this information requires us to know what they look like. Interestingly, we have different types of disinformation, and it is important that we all know these variations in order for us to recognize them. The first type of disinformation is false connection, where headlines, visuals, or captions don't match the content of the article. This is more commonly known to us as clickbait, where the title of the post appeals to our emotion, and as we examine the post, we can see that the headline does not show us the full story. This is an example of a false connection article. People are more drawn to these types of headlines and are more likely to click on them. But if we read the article, we can see that the claim is only proven in rats, not in humans. Another type of clickbait content are those from YouTube content farms, large companies that send out low quality and oftentimes fake content, and use attention-grabbing thumbnails to get clicks. A popular content farm is the channel 5-Minute Crafts, where they use outrageous thumbnails for their videos, but their hacks do not work most of the time, as proven by various debunking videos, especially those of Anne Reardon, a food scientist from How to Cook That. Even though these debunking videos exist, 5-Minute Crafts still continues to get millions of views on the regular, and their main channel has over 70 million subscribers as of recording. The next type of disinformation is false context, where legitimate content are used out of context. This is a good example of false context. The image used seems to be recently taken, but if we do a reverse image search, we can see that the image is taken from the early 2000s of Elian Gonzalez, who was famously deported to his native Cuba during the final year of the Clinton administration. Next, we have manipulated content where various media software are used to make doctored photos. This type of disinformation was featured in the 2007 movie Spiderman 3, where Eddie Brock brought a manipulated photo of Spider-Man to get the job he wanted, but Peter Parker revealed the original photo and proved that the pictures were fake.
I have a 9-year-old daughter who loves Spider-Man. Who's she supposed to look up to now?
This is the guy that gave the key to the city to?
It's funny you should say that, because I was looking through some old photos and it looks very, similar. Show this to your editor. Tell him to check his source next time.
It's a fake. Empire State Photographic Department confirms it.
Due to the abundance of open source and paid editing software, more and more manipulated content are put out in the media. Software such as Photoshop and GIMP make it easy to make manipulated content. This is also an example of manipulated content. If you were to do a reverse image search on this photo, you would discover that Putin was not actually grabbing the necktie in the original photo. Next, we have satire or parody. This is a type of disinformation that has no intention to harm but has a potential to deceive. Many satirical news sites like The Onion send out satirical news articles for fun, yet those who may not know that these are satire sources might believe in the article. This is an example of a satire news article from another site called Woken News Network. And although it might be obvious to some people, some may not recognize that this is a satirical news site. Misleading content, on the other hand, is content that intentionally deceives people. Misleading content can find its way into many real news sources, and the reason it's so hard to discover is because it requires some kind of expertise or knowledge about a given subject to determine whether the facts and details in any news article are being misrepresented. Next, fabricated content is simply 100% made-up false content, and one way to counter this is by lateral reading, which we will discuss later on. Lastly, we have imposter content, where fake news sources pretend to be legitimate sources. This may look like the ABC News website, but if we take a closer look, it is from abcnews-us.com. Yet, if we look up ABC News, the official URL of the site is abcnews.co.com. We've got 7 types of disinformation, and we'll talk about how to combat them later on. But even before we get into the nitty-gritty of recognizing a false information source, let's take a look at a method we can use for all types of information online to check if what we're reading is legitimate or not. This method is called looking for a nice source. We have been introduced to this method already during our recent Check the Source webinar for Week 1, where we talked about fact-checking and verification practices. A nice source is actually an acronym for a checklist of things we need to consider when checking the authenticity of the source. A stands for authoritative. If the post refers to a person as their source, check if the person is a person of authority in the field of study. Again, a person of authority in the specific field. For example, an article about, let's say, heart problems should feature a cardiologist as the source, not just a doctor. Doctors have different specializations, and the information might not be entirely accurate if, for example, the article used a neurologist or a doctor who specializes in nerves in the nervous system as their source. N stands for named. Check if the source of the article is identified in the article. Don't just believe an article just because it says a researcher told us that blah blah blah. Instead, you should look for something like Dr. Catherine Kailao, a doctor and researcher from the Philippine Pediatric Society, said that. I stands for independent, meaning that the information source must have nothing to gain by withholding information or by making misleading statements. Check for possible conflicts of interests and biases when checking sources. C stands for corroborated or checked with other sources. We'll talk about this later in our lateral reading section. Lastly, E stands for evidence-based, specifically empirical evidence-based. We've discussed empirical evidence in our first episode as information that verifies facts, which are in turn data that corresponds to reality and can be tested. In summary, a nice source is a source that is authoritative, named, independent, corroborated, and evidence-based. This is the method that will help you immediately recognize misleading content. Now, let's look at specific ways to recognize misleading content by type. First up, websites. Some websites, especially those who spread imposter content, copy or closely mimic the design of official sources. It's actually quite easy. Just hit Ctrl+S on your keyboard. The whole site can be saved to your device. It's simply a matter of changing the content of the website and uploading it to the hosting site. I actually managed to make this faux news website by taking this article from the BBC and changing the headline to this, and hosted it on 00 web host. Now, how do we determine if the website is fake or not? Well, the best way to do so is to check the URL. Take a look at the original BBC article versus the false one. As we can see, the URL says bbc.com, while the fake one says BBC British Broadcasting Corporation .000webhostapp.com. The presence of 000webhostapp.com indicates that I used a free hosting site for this article. No reliable news source will use a free hosting service for their own website. More dedicated disinformation spreaders may even pay for their own domain, which would make recognizing it even harder. While some sites may not even try to mimic the site name, instead having a random series of numbers and letters as the URL. Regardless, first check the URL. Check if the website is the real one by searching the company's real URL and cross-checking it with the real one. If the website isn't that popular but claims to be a real news source, go to the About section of the website. Reliable organizations contain information about their history, writers, publishers, and contact information, while fake creators do not spend much time building their About section, as the article and the ability to spread and generate advertising revenue is more important. Additionally, if you see the article attributed to the same writer over and over again, this can be a red flag. Ultimately, a total lack of an About Us section or writer attribution most likely means that the source is not legitimate. Next, we have images. We can recognize fake images by doing a reverse image search. We can do this by downloading the image and going to a reverse image search site such as Google Images. Go to images.google.com and click the camera icon. Click Upload Image and upload the image you wish to reverse image search. Afterwards, check the date of uploading and check the authenticity of the image. When watching videos, check the quality of the video. Does the video look professionally shot? Is the editing properly done? This may help considering that many official news outlets spend more money in making their videos look good. Although this might be the case, other professionally done videos may still be false. A good example is the 5-Minute Crafts channel, where they used high-quality video for their alleged hacks. In this case, check the title and figure out if it uses the clickbait title formula. Random number plus adjective plus hacks to plus promise. For example, 17, random number, awesome, adjective, hacks to save you a fortune, promise. Let's take a look at a real 5-minute crafts video. 30, number, cool, adjective, hacks and crafts, followed by a promise to make your life easier. If it does so, it's probably a clickbait video. Now, articles are the hardest to fact check, but one of the things you should do is lateral reading. Remember that for every post you see, practice healthy skepticism by fact checking whatever makes you emotional. Now, what you should do is cross-reference the site before believing in what it has to say. Just like what others say, Google is free, so learn to use it wisely. Copy and paste the title of the article or do a search of the topic the article discusses. Try to find at least 3 to 5 sources and look at what they have to say about the topic. If you can't find enough sources, that is information in itself. That means your original source does not have an established reputation. Proceed with caution. Once you determine a consensus from these news sources, make a judgment call about the original source's trustworthiness. This also applies to videos. Usually, video content is also available in article form from other news sources, so do lateral reading when watching videos. In conclusion, check if the source is a nice source, authoritative, named, independent, corroborated, and evidence-based. Check the URL of the website and read it about the About Us section, and do a reverse image search to check their authenticity. Perform lateral reading when you see a suspicious article, and just like the previous video, make sure to calm down and fact check before you believe in the posts you see. If you like this video, click that like button and subscribe to follow along in this Spot the Impostor campaign.